A planned spacewalk by the Russian space agency Roscosmos has been called off following the discovery of a coolant leak coming from the Soyuz MS-22 spacecraft, which is currently docked to the International Space Station. NASA's Rob Navias, speaking on the NASA TV broadcast, called it a fairly significant leak. Live images during the broadcast showed liquid spewing out from the Soyuz. Navias said the leak was first observed around 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time Wednesday. The Soyuz spacecraft is docked to the Russian segment of the space station. The crew is safe, and all systems of the space station and the ship are operating normally, according to Roscosmos, in a statement in Russian released Thursday morning on Twitter. The crew reported that the warning device of the ship's diagnostic system went off, indicating a pressure drop in the cooling system, according to Roscosmos. A visual inspection confirmed the leak, after which it was decided to interrupt the planned extravehicular activities by the crew members of the ISS Russian segments Sergei Prokopiev and Dmitry Petelin. Navias said the cause of the coolant leak is unknown and the effect at this point unknown as Russian managers continue to look over the data and consult with both NASA managers and engineers, and outside experts. He said the astronauts inside the space station were never in any danger. Russian cosmonaut Anna Kakina, using the camera on Russia's Nauka module on the space station, photographed and filmed the outer surface of the ship, according to Roscosmos. The data was transmitted to Earth, and the specialists have already begun to study the images. No decisions have been made regarding the integrity of the Soyuz MS-22 or what the next course of action will be, Navias added, wrapping up NASA TV coverage of the cancelled spacewalk. Roscosmos added that the situation will be analyzed before a decision is made about what comes next. NASA took a similar tone in a Thursday statement. NASA and Roscosmos will continue to work together to determine the next course of action following the ongoing analysis. The Soyuz MS-22 ferried NASA astronaut Frank Rubio and 2 Russian cosmonauts to the space station on September 21 and is scheduled to bring them back to Earth in late March.
FTX ally warned authorities days before Bankman-Fried arrest. One of the closest lieutenants of FTX founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, warned Bahamian regulators about improper trades at the cryptocurrency exchange in the days running up to its collapse, according to court filings. The revelation came in papers published as part of the bail hearing for Bankman-Fried, FTX's former chief executive, who was arrested in the Bahamas on Monday and charged in the U.S. on Tuesday over alleged fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. The filing refers to a warning from Ryan Salame, the co-CEO and chairman of FTX Digital Markets, the Bahamian-based portion of Bankman-Fried's sprawling cryptocurrency empire, about transfers to FTX's crypto hedge fund, Alameda Research. On November 9, Salame told the Bahamian Securities Commission that clients' assets which may have been held with FTX Digital were transferred to Alameda Research to cover financial losses at Alameda, according to the court documents first published by the Financial Times. In the filing, published as part of Bankman-Fried's bail hearing, Christina Rawl, the commission's director, added that Salame was clear only 3 people could have made the transfer. Such actions may be deemed criminal, Rawl concluded. The conversation between Rawl and Salame happened 2 days before FTX filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the U.S., and the same day that Binance, the largest cryptocurrency exchange, walked away from a non-binding offer to bail out the company after performing brief due diligence. Salame has long been one of Bankman-Fried's closest associates, just outside the innermost circle of the FTX co-founders. While Bankman-Fried built up a reputation as a megadonor for the Democratic Party, using his newfound influence in Washington, D.C. to push for friendly regulation, Salame was doing the same with the Republicans, ultimately giving more than $20 million to various causes within the party. Those donations are now under the spotlight after criminal charges filed against Bankman-Fried in New York include campaign finance violations and money laundering offenses. According to the Department of Justice's allegations, customer funds deposited at FTX were funneled to Alameda, where they were then used to make political donations in both Bankman-Fried's name and the names of other unnamed co-conspirators. The charges add, this authority was exercised at least in part through Bankman-Fried's regular, often daily participation in various in-person and mobile chat communications with senior personnel at Alameda.
Five takeaways from the front lines of the inflation fight. Price tags are displayed at a New York City supermarket on December 14th. Inflation has eased recently, but more evidence is needed to show that price increases are coming down in the long term, Fed Chair Powell said Wednesday. Price tags are displayed at a New York City supermarket on December 14th. Inflation has eased recently, but more evidence is needed to show that price increases are coming down in the long term, Fed Chair Powell said Wednesday. Prices are still climbing much faster than Americans were used to before the pandemic, even though there are signs that the Federal Reserve's dramatic steps to slow down inflation may finally be working. The central bank has made it clear it will do whatever it takes to bring inflation back down, and on Wednesday it raised interest rates for the seventh time in 9 months. Inflation is coming down. After hitting a four-decade high of 9% in June, annual inflation dipped to 7.1% last month, according to the government's latest scorecard. That's the smallest annual price increase in 11 months. Gasoline prices have dropped sharply and are now lower than they were before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The prices of other goods like used cars and televisions have fallen as pandemic kinks in the supply chain come untangled. And travel-related prices for things like airplane tickets and rental cars have dropped as the pent-up demand that followed lockdowns has faded and travelers become more price-conscious. Inflation is still too high. While some prices have come down, the overall cost of living is still climbing much faster than it was before the pandemic. At 7.1%, the November inflation rate is well above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. The rising cost of services such as haircuts and restaurant meals is particularly worrisome, since that's largely driven by labor costs, which tend to be stickier than volatile food and energy prices. Interest rates are going higher, but maybe not much higher. The Federal Reserve has been raising interest rates at the fastest pace in decades as it tries to tamp down demand and bring prices under control. Rising rates have made it more expensive for people to get a home mortgage or a car loan or to carry a balance on their credit card. The central bank's benchmark interest rate has jumped from near zero in March to just under 4.5% this week. But rates are now high enough to begin constraining inflation, and the Fed has indicated it may not push them much higher. This week's rate hike of 0.5 percentage point was smaller than the last four. On average, Fed policymakers think rates will top out next year at just over 5%. Federal Reserve Board Chairman Jerome Powell takes questions during a news conference after a Federal Open Market Committee meeting on December 14th. The Federal Reserve announced that it will raise interest rates by a 0.5 percentage point to 4.5. Interest rates aren't coming down anytime soon. Just because the Fed has slowed the pace of rate hikes doesn't mean borrowing costs will come down anytime soon. I wouldn't see us considering rate cuts until the committee is confident that inflation is moving down to 2% in a sustained way, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said on Wednesday. Fed policymakers are projecting any reduction in interest rates in 2023, and 7 of the 19 members of the Fed's rate-setting committee think rates will be higher at the end of 2024, 2 years away, than they are now. There's still a lot of uncertainty about where the economy is headed. The central bank has lowered its forecast for economic growth next year and raised its forecast for unemployment. But Powell says there's considerable uncertainty. I don't think anyone knows whether we're going to have a recession or not, and if we do, whether it's going to be a deep one or not, he said on Wednesday. Changes in the weather or the war in Ukraine could cause big swings in prices at the gas station and the grocery store. Faster or slower economic growth around the world could also cause gyrations in the price of crude oil and other commodities. The price of services is heavily dependent on what happens to wages. That depends in turn on how many jobs the country adds each month, how many workers are available to fill those jobs, and how productive workers are when they're employed.